Hey guys, it's Raven here, and today I'm going to be doing Canada for my deck video. As you can see, I actually have two Canadian decks, the Royal Canadian Regiment, which is just a general Canadian deck, and then oh man, say that 5 times fast. Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, which is my motorized Canadian deck. And real quickly, I'm going to just show you my motorized Canadian deck, because it is an interesting choice. I think Canada does pretty well at motorized. See, they get most of their Leopard 2s. They have a strong infantry section. If you want to take a look at that and use that, certainly feel free. But today I'm going to be actually focusing on my regular Canadian deck, just the general old non-specialized one. I've actually had a lot of people request that I do Canada, and it's kind of interesting just because Canada's not a nation you really see much implemented in warfare, strategy games. I guess with good reason. They don't have a very large army, and they're usually kind of considered second fiddle to America. But they actually do have a pretty modern and interesting armed forces, even though, no, it isn't very big. And, really, they're the guys that are always backing America up whenever we go and do things, and I really think they deserve a little more recognition than they get in American circles, and thanks, Canada. And I'm going to go over your deck, so hope you enjoy. To begin with, I have a Grizzly CP, which is just a affordable, armored, amphibious, very fast APC command. Nothing too remarkable about it. It gets the job done. I do like the Iltis CP actually, which is a alternative for only 15 points less. You do lose armor and life, but you get a little more availability. You get even a little bit faster off-road speed. I personally think the 15 more points is kind of worth it, especially with the high availability bonus I get. So I just go with the Grizzly CP. And then on top of that, I get the Command Leopard 1, which has the all-important 2 top armor. A very affordable command tank. You get 4 of them per card. You'd be crazy not to take it just because of how durable command tanks are at surviving artillery and bombing and so forth. And it looks very classy. It's got the nice little black Canadian maple leaf. Anyways, and then for supply, I take the HLVW, which is 30 points, actually triple the cost of the M35 cargo, but more than triple the supply. The M35 cargo, 500 times 3 would be 1500. The HLVW comes with 1700. So generally more bang for your buck. I really like the kind of bigger supply trucks. They're more reliable and self-sufficient. If you ever use the M35 cargo, you gotta bring out like 4 of them at once. Just it's silly. So I prefer the HLVW. And then it has pretty decent synergy with the Chinook, which is a great supply helicopter. Not the biggest or baddest, but you get a lot of them in a deck, and they're relatively affordable. You can get a pair of them, and they really work great as a mobile fob. And of course, I also have just a regular fob. Infantry. Canada has some pretty interesting infantry choices. They don't have just that largest selection, I guess, but well, my first card is the Canadian Rifles 85. At first glance, these guys aren't too great. Their M72A4 Law is rather weak. It's only got 16 AP, though it does have 20 rate of fire. These guys are really good actually at popping lighter vehicles with that fast rate of fire and defending cities because the C6 is actually a really powerful LMG. It's got nice accuracy, it's got high suppression, which is a lot more important value than people give it credit for, and also has high rate of fire. So this is actually a very powerful machine gun. For only 10 points, these guys aren't a bad value, and then they come in this TH945, which is just a basically Canadian infantry fighting vehicle. See, it's got 2 armor all around, which is pretty amazing for a 15-point unit. It's got a powerful autocannon, good accuracy, good range on it. Actually, really fast too. Look at that, 75 kilometers per hour off-road. Not a bad choice, and it's certainly an interesting unit for only a 25-point package. That's affordable and gives you a lot of fighting power for assaulting territory, fighting in fighting in forests, and then also going into villages and towns. You see, I also take the Pioneers, just standard flamethrower troops, with the TH495 as well. Really great synergy there, and Pioneers are absolute monsters in city combat with their SMG and their flamethrower, which can actually still fire in CQC. A lot of people don't really realize that. I've actually seen 2 cards of these guys beat 2 cards of Commandosi in CQC fighting, which is a little ridiculous. That probably shouldn't happen, but it does happen, and as long as it does, I'd probably recommend taking these guys in your deck. And of course, even outside of CQC fighting in forests, towns, they're really great units. Definitely recommend taking them. And then to round out my infantry section, I have 2 cards of Canadian Airborne in Bisons. Bisons are nice, 2 front, 2 side armor, fast transports, really great value for your money. Canadian Airborne themselves are also pretty good value. They have a Mini-Me, which is a very good machine gun. Not the best, but certainly in the higher tier, I would say. And then the Carl Gustav M3, which is a long range, good accuracy, okay AP launcher. And it's enough, 20 AP and the range and the accuracy. It makes a good little package. And they do pretty well at any role, forest fighting, city fighting, whatever it has you. It's a very robust, multi-purpose infantry, and with a great transport to get them into combat affordably and quickly. And then I also take the Javelin GL, which it's not the best man pad. It's only got 2450 range. I think it should have more. Accuracy's not great, but it does have a nice 5 HE. Unfortunately, it's guided rather than fighting to forget, which is a big minus, but Canada's air defense network's kind of weak, so you really do have to round them out with man pads, and that's why I take these guys. There are some interesting alternatives, one of which is not the Maw, which is total crap. Get that really weak launcher, even worse than the Canadian Airborne. And the blowpipe is also terrible for reasons that should be evident by looking at their accuracy stat and their range. But those interesting choices I alluded to are actually the Eric's team. I don't really like the five men fire support squads, but a lot of people have been saying it's pretty good. I haven't been trying them out lately, but in general, the Eric's is a much better launcher than it used to be. It acquires targets quickly, it fires quickly, the missile travels quickly, great accuracy, great AP power. These guys wouldn't be a bad choice to try out. I think they'd give you a lot of extra oomph in city fighting and maybe even forest fighting as a dedicated tank buster squad. The Eric's can fire in forests now, I see. I think it used to just automatically miss in forests, but thankfully that seems to have been fixed. And then the other card is the Highlanders. Now, I really want to take these guys, but they are objectively overpriced. There's without a question, they are overpriced. These are literally a stat copy of the Legion 90 with France. Same launcher, same mini-me, same strength, and of course an assault rifle, which is basically the same thing. The only problem is these guys are regular training and not shock. They should be shock, and I don't know why Eugen doesn't make them shock. Please, everybody, go make a thread on the forum, spam Mad Matt's inbox, tell them to make Highlanders shock, because they should be. Or if not, reduce them to 20 points, which is another great alternative. Now, on that subject, the Highlanders 90, or no, just the regular Highlanders, are also way overpriced. These guys should be probably 15 points for a regular training squad with a Carl Gustav M2. They would basically be the same thing. You know, I'm going to go show you. Please excuse me while I... where are they? Yeah, so here we go. Highlanders, and then the Panzer Skite. Panzer Skite are a 15-point Swedish line troop. If you look, they have the exact same rifle, the exact same Carl Gustav launcher, albeit less rounds, 6 instead of 9, and the exact, well, not quite the exact same machine gun. This one has a little more accuracy, but basically a very similar machine gun. And these guys are 15 points, these guys are 25 points. That's just ridiculous. They really need to lower the price of the Highlanders, or make them shock, or both, probably both. And on top of that, Highlanders have shitty transports. They have to come in either the expensive, kind of expensive, but slow, low-strength Huey helicopter, the more expensive but still slow Huey helicopter, or the very expensive but fast and slow to land Chinook. I generally don't like taking infantry and transports that cost as much as they do. If you can't use the transport, it's its own combat unit. You really can't with the Chinook, so you're paying 50 points for an already overpriced squad. Oh my goodness, no. And so, just because of those reasons, that this is really the best infantry section you can come up with, I think. If Highlanders were better priced, better statted, they'd have a lot bigger opportunity to shine in this deck, but not in a general deck, sorry. Support, you see there's very few options here. I take the Wolverine, which has 3 javelins mounted on the top. Like I said before, the javelin's not the best launcher, but fortunately this unit has 3 shots. It can fire 3 javelin shells or missiles in rapid succession, and then spends 12 seconds reloading those 3 tubes on the top. And so for early game rushes, supporting your Grizzly and Bison horde, not a terrible choice. Can certainly do self-defense duties against helicopters, but I wouldn't rely on them for much better than that. Because of the kind of shortest range, you also have to make sure you maybe ambush helicopters, like be hiding in a forest and creep up on them, or you can't just drive at them and shoot because helicopters will rocket you down before you get in position to fire. Overall, not the most robust or interesting unit, but it does the job okay. And certainly Canada lacks fast anti-air, and so it's good to have this. Also, I take the Centurion Marksman, which is actually a pretty decent unit. It's got a really strong anti-aircraft gun. It's got interesting armor here, 6 front, 2 side. That allows you to survive counter battery and shelling, but unfortunately it's not that great at surviving seed missiles. Some of the bigger marksman variants, like the Challenger Marksman, actually can survive hits from several seed missiles. This one cannot, so don't expect it to. Be careful with micromanaging its radar gun. And it is slow, so gotta be careful with that. But overall, it does provide a lot of punch for your air defense. Certainly engages helicopters and makes sure bombers don't go home in one piece. And then you have the ADATS. The ADATS is a very troubled unit, and the reason why is because it's 90 points, which is huge. That's an immense cost. And then it only has 45% accuracy, which literally 1 out of 2 of your missiles will hit if you're lucky, if you're not panic damage, if you don't lose line of sight, because remember this is guided. Now, it is a very interesting unit. It has a high 7 HE, which means it'll kill a lot of weak helicopters in one shot and do a lot of damage to aircraft and such. And it also has a very high 20 AP power and can target ground units. So this is actually a very versatile, interesting unit. The thing is, it's so expensive and the accuracy is so low that it's really not a great value. But since you're Canada, you almost have to take it. And so, yes, it has really long range against helicopters. It can kind of deny airspace. It does have a nice 8 missile complement, and you have the HLVW to keep it nice and supplied. But it really, really needs an accuracy buff, or at least a price nerf down to like 65 or something, because that's all this really justifies. I really think they need to take a look at this unit. People have been asking them to do so since ALB, and they just don't. So that's another unit. Go to the forums, complain, fill Mad Matt's inbox up, tell him to change the frickin' ADATs. And then, yeah, so I take mortars as well, of course. I love mortars, great for smoking. The Bison does a really good job. It's basically the same launcher as the M125, but it's faster, much faster off-road, much more maneuverable. It's amphibious. Great little unit. I really like it as a mortar. It is short range, but it fires quickly, puts down a nice thick wall of smoke. Not a bad choice. I definitely prefer the Bison. And then I also take a long-range artillery. I take the M109 RCHA, which I think means Royal Canadian Heavy Artillery, but you'll have to ask a Canadian. And it's worse than the M109A2, but it has the same HE and the same rate of fire. What does that mean? Well, it means that for a little more availability, see this one has, the 80.1 has 6 and 4. The regular one has 8 and 6. So for a little more availability, I can fire the same rounds down range. More dispersion, yes, but I get more of them per card, so I can really just get 8 of these and pound away a 9100 meter radius with just a bunch of 7 HE shells. Really fill it up, really disperse my artillery components all around a zone. And really the 109s, this is just the best value. I believe they fire at the same time as well, i.e. way too long. And so the 80 points, the 100-point 109s, they're just not very good. Always take the 50-point ones, at least for now. Yeah, you have to drive a little closer to your target because it has less range. No, they're not as great at sniping things, but you're not going to snipe anything with the M109A2 anyways. So take the 50-point one. Tanks, Canada. Oh, they have some really nice tanks. I just wish they got their Leopard 2s, which is something they acquired post-Cold War. And of course, Eugen says that, well, we can't give them those because the Cold War didn't end, and they didn't get a bunch of surplus German and I think Netherlands Leopard 2s. Well, Sweden did, and Canada should, so that's not something that'll ever happen, unfortunately, but in the meantime, we get this very nice Leopard C2 Mexus, which is really one of the most cost-effective medium tanks in the game. See, it's got great gun stats with the nice maximum range, 65% accuracy, a nice high 17 AP for only 75 points, and this kind of turtle-looking armor add-on. It's just something they put over the top of a regular Leopard C2, I think. And it gives pretty good survivability, actually. 14 front, 3 top. Generally a really nice unit. A lot of people like the Mexus, and with good reason. See, I take them 10 hardened just to get a little bit more out of the availability bonus Canada gets. Overall, a very nice main battle tank. Unfortunately, it has a lot of trouble dealing with super heavies, and you don't, as Canada, really have much ability to play in long range engagements against T90s or anything like that. So you have to be a little more careful, a little more circumspect with the zones you go to. But for what you can do, the Leopard one's a really great choice. Of course, you also get the regular Leopard C2, which you can see it has the same gun stats as Mexus. The only difference is for 10 less points, you lose a lot of armor. Not a bad tank either, unfortunately, just not quite as good a value as the Mexus, so you generally use the Mexus, and then when you run out, you can fall back on the Leopard C2. And then I also take the Leopard C1, which, not the best. It's got kind of lower range, pretty decent accuracy, but low AP, low armor. 40 points, not terrible. Good for a bulk tank, I guess. I used to take the Centurion for only 5 points less, but I guess I should compare them. But you lose a lot on the gun. You gain only a little armor. You lose a lot of speed. So I just decided for 5 points more, the Leopard C1 was worth it. Unfortunately, the Centurions have really gotten nerfed over the course of the game from their heyday of pre-DLC 1, where they were just so cost-effective and so spammed. And of course, the Leopard 1s have gotten a lot of buffs, so that really, I think the Leopard 1 line is the only thing in the Canadian tank arsenal that really bears looking at. And so I take those. And not many tanks, but pretty good punch for their value, I find. Recon, Canada has a pretty strong recon section despite having not many choices, you can see. I take the Recce squad, which as you can see is actually a pretty unique unit. It's got a anti-material rifle with 1 AP. That means that you can actually snipe light vehicles like AA pieces, artillery pieces sometimes, and of course command vehicles with this AP that scales up every so often you get close to your target. Really great at assassinating important units as well as spotting them. Of course, 2-man sniper team, exceptional training, pretty fast moving. Just a really interesting unit, really, and I really like it. Definitely worth trying out. They give a unique capability to Canada that nobody else has. You could take the Pathfinders, but they're just not that good. Their assault rifle's not very good. Their law is terrible, of course. Yes, they're essentially an elite infantry unit that you can use, but not in a regular deck. I do take 2 cards of these in my motorized deck, as you probably saw, just for kind of just infantry fighting. But other than that, really the Recce's the way to go. And then I take the Coyote, which is a up-armored Lav. This is what the Lav should be, by the way. It's got 3 AP, high accuracy gun, 2 front, 2 side armor. Really great unit. I don't know why Canada has the good Lavs and America has the shitty Lavs, but it is what it is, and Canada certainly benefits from this. Of course, it is called the Coyote, but this is just a Lav variant. It's got very good optics for nice speed, all those other attributes I mentioned. 45 points, relatively affordable. I like it as a opener unit to kind of escort my ground units going in their bisons and their grizzlies. Just really great unit. And then I take a just Recon helicopter. Affordable, very good optics, not remarkable, but pretty workable. There aren't really that many great options other than that. The Cougar Recon is pretty meh. The Ferret, albeit this is only 10 points. You can really spam this around and have eyes everywhere, so I will say that. Unfortunately, it has a Union Jack flag on it rather than a Canadian maple leaf, so I find that kind of disqualifies the Ferret. But hey, if you like 10-point cheap recon units, definitely take it. Lynx, again, 10 points, sprinkle it around. The Ultis Scout is the one unit I would really consider taking just because it has exceptional optics and otherwise you don't have it in a Canadian deck. But unfortunately, I just like the Coyote so much and I don't have room for the Ultis right now. And so that's why I take what I do. Then vehicle section. This is another place Canada has a lot of unique stuff. First of which being the Chimera, which is a completely ahistorical, never created, but thankfully we have it. Just tank destroyer, I guess. You see, it's got a gun that doesn't traverse. It can move a little bit left and right, but in order to attack, it needs to physically face whatever it's shooting at. So be aware of that. It doesn't have a turret. It can't quickly reacquire targets that aren't in front of it. It does have a slow firing gun, though it's pretty powerful. And for 120 points, you get basically a 20 front armor brick that can just. It's not going to be able to confront T90s per se, but it can certainly stand on a battle line and take hits and just give you some bulk and really eat up missiles and whatnot. Really great, adds a lot of survivability to the Canadian deck, and the Leopard 1s, of course, synergize with it pretty well. This takes hits, this spearheads the Leopard 1's clean up. Also take the LAV 3 Tua. It's got TOW-2 missiles, which are pretty much one of the best missiles in the game. High AP, high accuracy. 75 points is really steep for this, I have to admit. Could probably take the Iltis TOW-2 instead for less missiles, but a lot more affordability. I wish this were a lot cheaper, actually. It should only be maybe 55, maybe 60 points. But it is what it is, and Canada needs tank busting, so I take it. It is a lot better value than, for example, the M113 Tua, which for 5 points less is a lot slower and has 4 less missiles. And same thing with these. These TOWs are progressively worse. Recoilless Rifles are interesting units, but I don't particularly like them, just as throwaway units. And then there's also the Cougar, which is an interesting unit. I wish this was better, but it's got a heat gun with low accuracy and low stats and not very good armor. It used to be kind of a staple of the Canadian deck in ALB, and just not so much anymore, unfortunately. Helicopters. There's some interesting choices here too. I take the CH-135 gunship, which has just rockets basically. Actually, I should probably take this gunship. Whoops. They've actually changed which of these rockets had HE and which had heat. I think I got caught up in that. But anyways, I take this gunship, which has heat rockets. 2 AP, 1 damage guarantee. It's really interesting for just breaking up. It really can hurt tanks, even kill tanks if you're lucky. And it can mow down vehicles, and it has some miniguns for fire support. Not a bad unit. CH-135 isn't a terrible unit either, actually. It's got just a lot of 2 HE, 28 rockets. Good for fire support, but I'd prefer the heat variant just for that unique capability. Do not take this unit. This is Canada's ATGM helicopter, but the ATGMs are so low accuracy, so weak, that there's really just no point in this, I don't think. Finally, Air Force. Canadian ASF, not great. For 130 points, it gets the job done. Canadian multi-role. No, this is not really a multi-role. Don't use it in that way except as an emergency. This is a cluster bomber, and I don't really like cluster bombers. They're hard to aim their bombs. They're not all that reliable, but this does have 8 bombs with 6 AP. So if you can get good effect on target, you can really hit a lot of these and hurt or even kill super heavies. Plus you don't have an ATGM plane, so this is basically the best Canada gets. And the 30% ECM makes sure you come home at least most of the time. Freedom Fighter, really nice, just cheap bomber, 70 points. You get three 500 kilogram bombs. No ECM, so be careful with it. You gotta escort it with seed. Thankfully, Canada is well provided in that in the electric voodoos. You get three of these, 50% ECM. You should really spam these. Use at least two, maybe even all three at once to kind of swarm an area with a bomber train coming behind it. And they'll eat missiles, kill radar AA. Hopefully the missiles will miss them because they're high ECM. But kill radar AA and just kind of clear the path for your freedom fighters and your Hornets to do a big bombing run. Canada really excels at those big bombing runs because of the electric voodoos and their close air support planes. And then finally I take the Starfighter. Not particularly remarkable, but this is poor man's seed. You can send it at, for example, 100-point Tunguska, kill it with your rockets, and then maybe get out, maybe die. Either way, you're 30 points ahead if your Starfighter dies and the Tunguska dies as well. Not a bad choice. You could certainly take another card of Freedom Fighters just to add to your bomber train, but I take the Starfighters just to just to give one more capability. Yeah, really their last plane of mention is the CF-101B Voodoo, which is, you get as many as 7 of them with these really crappy missiles. You can really spam and swarm these. I think this is kind of a joke unit, and I wouldn't take this. Some people do, and they take them at like 4 veteran and 2 cards, and they get a huge swarm and send them and kill planes, and that's kind of cheesy. I don't do that. So I avoid this unit, plus it looks kind of dorky, so yeah, I guess that's pretty much Canada. Again, it's an interesting deck. No, it's not the strongest. It has a lot of capabilities, though, a lot of flavor, and I do enjoy playing them, and I think you should give them a try. What else? Let's see. I take them more in for city fighting or fighting in irregular terrain rather than open ground. Certainly with the Chimera and some of your ATGM units, you can support, for example, in America or a Britain in open ground, but I wouldn't recommend it generally. This deck does do pretty good at what it's best at, though, which is infantry combat and more skirmishing, light vehicles, good recon, and all that. And it, like I said, it does lend itself really well to a motorized playstyle. And that's why I showed my motorized deck at the start, and I'll show it again really quickly. Here you go. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the Canadian deck video. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, leave love notes. And, yeah, take care. I'll see you guys later.